Everyone, this is going to be a quick video. I don't have a lot of time to put this one together, but I want to get this information out there because it just it's been pressing on me when I see them talk like this and they say things like this. When it comes to weather, I definitely want to put it out because I feel you can kind of see maybe there's an agenda there, and with all the weather warfare going on right now, maybe we can give these people a little bit of heads up. Now you're going to see two videos here real quick that I'm going to show you, okay? And the first one is Mr. Hamburger Man. If all of you remember, Mike Morales has been showing it for a long time. We've all kind of talked about he's the dude that was up there, you know, doing the weather report, talking about how birds, you know, are hamburger shaped.
This is the eye of the storm where it's pretty quiet, so you wouldn't expect there's going to be any rain there. This is actually birds. Yeah, birds actually showed up in the middle of this hurricane, as they often do. We saw this with Hurricane Arthur a couple years ago. This is a product that shows you how similarly shaped everything is, where you see the red colors, you got a lot of similar things flying around like rain. All this blue stuff here is, you know, a mixture of birds, maybe some feathers flying around. This product shows you what shape things are, okay? And basically when you see these kind of higher colors here, like the purples and the whites, that's when things are more hamburger shaped rather than, you know, vertically shaped. So think about how birds fly. Right? So they're kind of, they would appear more hamburger shaped to the radar. That's why.
You know, a lot of people messaging us, emailing us, telling their dogs woke them up or their cats woke them up before the earthquake happened. Something else that we can actually see when we have these earthquakes is the birds. We can see this. So what I want to do here, I'm showing you radar here for the last couple of hours. See how it's quiet? This was before the earthquake. Watch behind me as all of a sudden you start to see all of that green. What that actually is the birds taking flight as that earthquake came through. So I'm going to reverse it here. And this is about 2 hours ago. And then you see those birds leave as we have that earthquake. So again, a 5
All right, guys, Kart Racer here. Here we are looking at the next rad. Over the last 3 days, I've been keeping track of this. These are 96-hour loops, and we can see they are just completely firing up the East Coast, cranking the Dopplers up. Had a couple anomalies there. What I really want to get into is looking how they're using these next rads. And there's documentation. These are like miniature HARP arrays. They put out small west second. Any second.
And that's why the, you know, the radar was showing all these different, you know, things that didn't line up with what, you know, what they were saying. You know, that the radar was catching the birds because they were hamburger shaped. But, all right, listen to him real quick.
It's not every day that you hear Seattle and tsunami in the same sentence. But tsunamis have hit Washington state before, and they will again. So the state released this simulator to show the effects, and I gotta tell you, it's pretty scary stuff. In some areas, people would only have minutes, if that long, to escape before a wall of water rushed in. Southwest Washington would basically be washed away, and models show that 60 feet of flooding could inundate the area. Seattle and Tacoma would get slammed too. But those areas would have hours, not minutes, to prepare. It takes a pretty strong earthquake to set off a tsunami, and the simulator uses a magnitude 9 quake along the Cascadia subduction zone, which hugs a lot of the west coast. Major earthquakes happen there every 300 to 600 years. The last one was back in 1700. So now's probably a pretty good time for Washington to put this simulation to use so that they'll be ready for the fallout from the next big one.
Now, I'm not saying that I think this is going to happen, but I just think it's pathetic that they have to continue to push out more fear, right? I mean, think about it. They're going to put stuff like that in the mainstream. I didn't have to dig for this. That was one of the main stories, you know, in the weather, on the Weather Channel. You know, when they're talking about a tsunami like that, you know, I just think it's more and more fear being pushed, and then you never know. You really don't know. They've been talking about the San Andreas going out forever, and, you know, of course it's going to happen. You know, they say it's, you know, not if, it's when, and, you know, as evil as we've seen this world become, there is definitely no doubt that they could set off something just like that. So we move on to this second one because we had just what happened with Hurricane Laura, you know, and how completely upside down that entire storm and entire news coverage was. So if you haven't seen the video that I made on Hurricane Laura, please check it out. I'll put a link in the description, but that was definitely not a Category 4. And did it cause damage? Of course it did. Did it devastate people's lives? Yes, it did, and we're praying for all those people affected. But you need to know that you were not hit by just some normal hurricane, you know, a Category 4 hurricane. You were hit by a targeted storm with some type of technology. So please check that out. And here is the last video.
Well, the 2020 hurricane season off to a record pace. We've nearly reached the end of our list of names, and we're not even halfway through the season. But there's one area of the U.S. coastline that has been spared from the tropical impacts. And you're looking at it. It's Florida's west coast. Tampa, Fort Myers Beach, just two of the cities lying in this so far lucky area. Again, we look at the alerts for 2020, storm surge watches and warnings, hurricane watches and warnings, tropical storm watches and warnings. And you can see all the way from Maine to South Florida, the East Coast has had them. A lot of the Gulf Coast has had them. But again, the Gulf Coast of Florida and the Panhandle not included yet. Well, despite the fact that Tampa has not seen a single tropical storm watch or warning this season, doesn't mean you're in the clear. I said yet, right? Tampa sits, in fact, in one of the most dangerous zones of the U.S. coastline. Here's why.
Tampa, Florida is very vulnerable to hurricanes. Many counties in the region are surrounded by water on up to 3 sides. The Gulf is relatively shallow. During a storm, the surge is pushed higher and higher. Once the water moves into Tampa Bay, it gets stuck. It has nowhere to go but up and over the land. An 1848 storm was believed to have only been a Category 1. If that happened again, let alone a Category 3 or 4, the water would be over a person's head and the damage would be staggering. An evacuation in this area could be a nightmare. The population here has grown by 600% since 1950. That's a lot of people that have to get to high ground on relatively few highways. Timing in an evacuation is very critical. If people do not respond quickly, roads become backed up and leaving becomes difficult. Most of the 3 million residents have never seen a hurricane in this area and may not understand the threat. Officials urge for residents to take threats seriously and move quickly when they say you need to go. Routes headed north and east out of Tampa will be jammed in any hurricane evacuation. And any hurricane making landfall near here will likely be going north and east as well.
So, Dr. Knabb, what is it about this part of Florida's coastline that keeps these tropical systems away or has kept them away thus far this year? And what changes to make them more vulnerable?
Well, it's not completely luck. If we look at history and look at the weather patterns, we know that the west coast of Florida during the peak of the hurricane season is harder to hit than other places. But later in the hurricane season, your luck starts to run out historically. So let's talk about that. Let's look at the systems that have made landfall on the west coast of Florida, not in the Panhandle so much, but down the west coast, before October. I'm going to get to October in a little bit because that's a different beast. But if you look at some of the recent systems that have happened in the June through September period, one that really sticks out is Charlie, because that was a bona fide west coast of Florida hit, could have gone to Tampa, but it was in August. And the reason that we got west coast of Florida to be hit in August was we had an unusually strong trough digging into the Gulf of Mexico that brought it north and curved it northeastward. That doesn't happen very often in the peak of the hurricane season. And you look at these other September systems, the Labor Day hurricane, Donna, Irma, they all came in from the east and then came over the Keys and then, kind of a south to north kind of track, but not coming, bodily into the southwest coast like we often see in October, because the Western Caribbean is a hot spot. Things come north, kind of like Michael, but they don't always go straight north like Michael did. They often curve to the right. And if you look at October and the west coast of Florida, that is when you've had most of your hurricane hits. In fact, October has had more hurricane landfalls in Florida than any other month, with the historically worst one being nearly a century ago, this major hurricane that came ashore just north of Tampa Bay in 1921 that maximized the winds and storm surge into Tampa Bay. So, Mike, October is the really dangerous part for that part of Florida. But it's been a long time since Tampa got a direct hit.
Listen, the reality here, Dr. Knabb, is there's hardly anyone alive that witnessed the 1921 hurricane, right? And we've got more than 3 million people in harm's way here. If a storm were to come that way, this could have a significant effect on getting people out of harm's way and what it could do to the coastline.
Yeah, because a couple of things. One, the big change in population that Alex talked about in her package there. So many more people on the west coast of Florida than in 1921. And even compared to 2004, there's more people down in southwest Florida. So you've got to find out your evacuation zone. And here's point number 2 about the west coast of Florida. You know how we found out again in Laura how far inland storm surge can go from the immediate coastline? Well, the west coast of Florida, in southwest Florida, Naples, Fort Myers, it can go in 10, 15, 20 miles. And look at how far inland from the immediate Gulf front that storm surge evacuation zones exist. So you've got to find out your zone right now. Don't assume that you don't have a problem if you don't live right at the beach.
So please, if you are in western, the entire west side of Florida, or even, the Panhandle, or even, Alabama, that area right there, please be ready, because when they come out and do this and they show these things, you have to take some precautions, because it seems like they know exactly what's going on. Over and over again, we continue to see this happen, right? So please, prepare in those areas, because I've been showing how they have been hitting all these different areas, whether it be wildfires, the protests, the derechos, or, now the hurricanes, where they're knocking on every spot where Agenda 21 is coming in, where these megacities are going to be built. And there's a massive one down in Florida, so you definitely need to pay attention. So all of Florida should, they're always on guard for hurricane season, that's obvious, but I just, that west side, the way they're showing that, let's just see if it leads to something, okay? Everybody stay safe, stay strong, don't fear with all this. It's just fear they're going to push, but you know that in the end, good defeats evil. They know that their time is truly running out. Our time is running out to prepare for their last attempt at gaining control. But their time is running out completely. And they know it. That's why the veil has been lifted, and we are seeing it every day. We'll talk to y'all real soon. God bless.